The first song we'd like to offer this morning is called The Philosopher and the Boatman. The way to perfection is narrow and steep.
The bypaths are many.
The pitfalls are deep.
By theory alone, many think to arrive. Here's one who could teach them if he were alive. A philosopher stepped into a boat. The river to cross would he. So learned was he thought no man could be half so clever as he. Singing wise-o with his boat song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his boat song, such a mighty scholar was he. To the boatman he said,
Good man, pray tell of the German philosophers three, Schopenhauer, Hegel, and Vedi Kant, whom you deem the wisest to be.
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he.
Please excuse me, sir.
The boatman said,
I've not read your philosophers three. All day I'm obliged to ply these orders to support my family and me.
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he.
In that case, my good man, your wretched life is as good as a quarter lost. Why, without the liking of those three men, not a shelf of books would I cross.
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he.
Now then tell me, good man,
The scholar said,
have you studied the Frenchman, Descartes?
I've told you before.
the other cried.
I'm on school, hard work is my art.
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he.
Hard work, what a waste! Sad, foolish man, half your life has been thrown away. Yet still a fragment might be redeemed. Memorize one theory a day.
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. On a sudden storm with raging light did lash that river to foam. Like a drifting pedal they tossed their boat to the sea, they never get home. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Then the boatman roared,
My limits, sir, our chances are growing dim. 2 questions you put me so far in this trip. Now I'll ask you one. Can you swim?
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he.
I can't swim a smoke!
The philosopher cries, he come despair to an oar.
Then the whole of your life is lost, my friend. You'll not need those books anymore!
Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a mighty scholar was he. The boatman regrets to say his fare, never reached the opposite bank. All that ponderous learning inside his head gave him weight, you see, and he sang. Singing wise-o with his book song, such a weighty scholar was he. singing high so with his book sound, such a weighty scholar was he. La 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 la.
Good morning. Our reading today is taken from the Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 38. Intuition is simple, the intellect is complex. Truth is one and eternal, realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 10, we read a passage that Yogananda often quoted. And they brought young children to him, that he should touch them, and his disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. It has often been noted that a critical attitude tends to paralyze creativity. Good critics, for example, seldom produce works of creative genius, though their creations may be intellectually clever. The intellect separates, it analyzes, then puts things together again piece by piece. Intellect lacks intuition's flow, which descends smoothly like a river from the superconscious. Paramahansa Yogananda described intuition as the soul's power of knowing God. To receive the kingdom of God, Jesus was saying, one must do so with the openness and trust of a little child. Intellectuals may object to this statement, saying, but there also must be discrimination. You wouldn't want a person to be so open-minded that his brains fall out. The truth is, however, that the intellect can be fooled, even when it does its best to discriminate wisely. Only intuition is capable of penetrating to the heart of a matter and knowing truth from falsehood. It was the clear understanding of a child, not the elaborately persuaded intellects of his elders, that enabled the child in Hans Christian Andersen's story to cry out in surprise, "Why isn't the emperor wearing any clothes?" Therefore it was that Sri Krishna said in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, to you who are free from the carping spirit, I shall now reveal wisdom sublime. Grasping it in your mind and perceiving it by intuitive realization, you shall escape the evils of delusion. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, all. My name is Lorna. I'm here with Bharati and Mari and Hanuman, and it's great fun to be here together. We have had a full weekend. Yesterday we had a big Maha yard sale out here. I don't know if any of you guys walked away with treasures, but it was pretty impressive out there. And then we were out at Ananda house doing Save a Day, helping them clean up and get into the fall mode out there. And it's just then now we've got Sunday service and the rains came back. So fun. So I was talking with our friend David Miller, who now is our resident church mouse here, if you don't know. He lives upstairs. I was talking to him about the song that we did, The Philosopher and the Boatman, which I have always thought is great fun. I love doing that song. And every time we do it a little bit differently. And he told me, not everybody likes this song. Some people don't like this song. And I was why would I ever like this song? But I realized then that I don't have a real strong self-definition of being smart or intellectual or a philosopher. So it's always just been real fun for me. But there are those people who, have a little stronger sense of the brain power, and I can see where they might not enjoy the song so much. But But we also need to look at what Swami Kriyananda says in this song. The two main points he makes at the beginning, is the first line is, by theory alone, many think to arrive. So the philosopher is not one who actually has experiences in the theories. He's by theory alone, by just studying, talking about them, knowing about them, carrying big books around with him, he thinks he's going to get there, wherever there is for him. And then the other part is, so learned was he thought no man could be half so clever as he. So he's critical. He has the carping spirit. He's judging others and saying, I'm smarter, I'm better. He told the poor boatman, your wretched life is as good as a quarter lost. So these are two attitudes that are not going to be helpful for us moving along on the spiritual path. That the intellect can endlessly debate and theorize and compare and weigh and measure. And we can't seem to do that just for the fun of it. There always comes the other part, which is when you weigh and you measure and you compare, somebody comes out ahead and somebody comes out below. There's always the judgment and the criticism that goes with it. And the boatman didn't survive just because he was ignorant. He survived because he knew the river. He knew the river, he had his tools, he had the oar, he had a great cap, didn't he have? He had a great cap. And he had his boat, and in this story, Swami didn't explain this, but I believe, often the river, the water, represents delusion. Getting over through the waters of delusion. Actually, it's interesting, the story was an adaptation. He westernized it for us with the philosophers and the German accent and the weighty Kant, as one of the philosophers. He actually adapted this from a story that Yogananda used to tell. It was an Indian story about a philosopher, a learned man who knew the Vedas, the Indian scriptures. And so he took that story and had fun with it. And I think he was poking a little fun at himself as well. Swami Kriyananda had a very strong intellect and was very much able to discuss philosophy and on a level that I certainly couldn't. And his guru, Yogananda, was always telling him, you need more devotion. You need to open your heart. You need to balance that strong intellect with the power and the transforming energy that the heart brings. And the Western mind, tends to do this, take and weigh and measure and compare, and it seems really productive. You can get together and I remember in college, having long debates about the theories of the universe and the meaning of cosmic realities and everything, and you walk away feeling like you really did something, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened, and chances are your consciousness didn't change a bit either, but you had a lot of fun getting into all of it. And Swami actually said creativity, it actually stifles creativity when we get into theorizing and over-intellectualizing. Because he said, true creativity constitutes relating to reality, not merely analyzing it. So we need to actually, like the boatman, relate to what is real and what is it that we have to do in the here and now. But of course, in Dwapara Yuga, as we are now in the age of energy, we don't have to carry around big heavy books and study and get the books off the library shelves and look through the pages. We have the internet. So we can debate and philosophize and chew on subjects and give opinions and weigh into forums and do endlessly. We have so many more opportunities now. And even in the spiritual realm, I caught myself just the other day. I was looking at the website ananda.org, which is wonderful. It has a wealth of information and wonderful things about this path and these teachings and the music and the books and everything on there. And they have this terrific column, Spiritual Questions and Answers. And again, it's very helpful. There's a lot of information, a lot of wonderful experienced people who answer people's questions on there. And I got into the whole long stream of all these questions about meditation. And I encourage you to check it out sometime. But I got deeper and deeper into it. I got myself, I'm reading all the questions, reading all the answers. And that is fascinating. Oh my gosh, what kind of experience, what kind of karma would make that happen? What does that mean cosmically? How did they do that? That's really weird. I never thought about that before. And I got caught and I kept reading. And then I thought, I'm so impressed with the answers, and how do these people come up with these clear and concise and very caring and loving answers and addressing all of these concerns, They're amazing. How do they do that? And then suddenly it was like a little light went on. I went, oh, they meditate. They know all about meditation because they meditate. They're not throwing out theories. They're not throwing out, oh, maybe this is true and maybe that is true. They were answering on the level of knowing and level of experience. When you meditate and you go deeply inside, and the people who are answering these questions are meditators of decades, long-time meditators. And the more you do that, the more you get a sense of what is real and what's true inside. And you're not answering those questions on the level of theory and the level of philosophy. And the Vedas say this, and the scriptures say this, and this is what is. They're answering it on the level of personal experience and knowledge and intuition. Intuition is that connection with the superconscious, and it's simple. When you relate to things intuitively, and you draw on the superconscious, it is simple. It's not that complicated. It's very easy to bring that truth right to the center there, right to where it's accessible. And this wonderful line from the Bible that we've all heard, suffer the little children to come unto me, and don't hinder them. What of these, such is the kingdom of God. The attitude of a small child, of a young child, is just that openness. Now also, there's a naivety and there's an immaturity in children that is not what he's talking about. He's talking about the openness of the heart. I mean, imagine being in a crowd of people, perhaps thousands of people, listening to Jesus talk. Imagine if Yogananda were here and he was sitting out on a hill and talking to people, and people were gathered and coming from miles around because of his magnetism and because of the power of that light and that truth that they feel from him. And children just want to run up and sit at his feet. There was no concern about who this person was. He's a great avatar, he's a great master, he's a great rabbi, and we're not supposed to do that. They just wanted to be closer. They could just feel the energy and the power and the love from him, and the children just wanted to get more and come close. And that was what Jesus was talking about, is let them do that. That's what we all need to do, we want to get closer to that light and to that truth, and whatever the channel is that is coming through, we want to be open to that. I had to look up, it's always bothered me, that word suffer the little children, because it's an odd word that we don't use in that way anymore. But the Latin root of that is actually to endure, or to allow, to tolerate. Let them, allow them to come, which makes it make a little bit more sense. Swami said, the key to becoming childlike is to hide no corner of our being from his scrutiny. We must learn to trust him utterly, realizing that he alone can never disappoint us. We must learn not to weigh, compare, and evaluate whatever blessings we receive from him, but to live fully, joyfully in him, in the eternal now. Which of course relates back to our affirmation that we had today on joy. Swami Kriyananda became more and more childlike as he became older. He had, as I said, a very strong intellect, and in his younger days he could give classes and talk about every topic. He wrote all these books. One of the first ones he wrote was, what was the modern? Crisis, thank you. See, my mind. Crisis in Modern Thought, where he actually used his understanding of all of the different philosophies to try to clarify for those people like the philosopher in our song who get bogged down in all of those theories. But as he became more elderly, more and more that sweetness, because he said he just felt bliss and that joy inside all the time. And so when he began to talk, he would just sometimes choke up and get teary just because of the joy and the bliss that he felt, and it would just permeate everything that he did and everything that he talked about. And he became so more and more focused and more centered on just that joy. And in his life, that joy, the conduit, the source of that joy for him was his guru, was Master. And so Yogananda helped open his heart and open that conduit of joy for him. And so that's what he always focused on. And he would talk about that moment of meeting his guru and how much that transformed him. And he became very, very childlike. And again, the carping spirit is what we all have to fight. We all have to, every day, every day in every conversation, we have to remember that the carping spirit, the negativity and the criticism is what puts up a barrier between us and that joy. It's like having what I thought of as we see ourselves as separate when we have that carping spirit, and we can compare and we can criticize other people or just other things or circumstances. It's a barrier. It's like we're keeping ourselves separate from everybody else, and we don't see that common ground. It's like I pictured a hazmat suit. It's like wearing a hazmat suit, and you just so that because you're just keeping yourself protected and apart from everything and everybody. This is the way my brain works. I am not a philosopher. So, picture a hazmat suit. I've seen enough sci-fi movies, when the hazmat suit suddenly gets a tear in it. And then it's panic. Oh my God, what's going to happen? The hazmat suit is broken, the toxins are going to get in or something. And I imagine somebody grabbing a carp and slapping it on this guy in a hazmat suit with carps stuck all over him. So there's a visual image for you when you start feeling that carping spirit. We don't want to keep ourselves separate. We want to see that unity between us all, which again is a childlike attitude, isn't it? How many times, if you've been around children at all, how many times have you heard children say, oh, look, they have the same hairstyle as me. Oh, look, my shoes are red too. You're instant friends because they see something that they have in common with you. And they're always looking for that unity. They're always looking for what it is that connects us. What is it that's the same? And it's fun. I remember having my children in the car and them saying, look, there's a car just like ours. And I'd look around, where? And in their mind, they saw a car that happened to be the same color, as ours. Or perhaps it was sort of like almost the same make and model, but everything else. And my mind saw only differences. But children, when they're young enough, they're always looking for that unity and that sameness. And it's something that we need to work on too, because as we grow, we lose that, and the intellect starts kicking in more and more and says, no, things are different. they're different than you. That's different than you. This is a different experience. This is a different place. This is different and therefore needs to be treated differently, or you need to be different because of those differences there. And it makes us nervous, and it makes us worried and anxious, and it makes us more fearful, because if I'm supposed to be different, how am I supposed to act if something different is expected of me? And when you realize that nothing different is expected of you, the only thing that's expected of us, that God expects of us, is to do our best and to try to keep our heart open. What is it that's different? Whether you're at work, whether you're at church, whether you're at home, whether you're at Fred Meyer, wherever you are, there's nothing different. It's all the same thing. Have you ever played that game with kids? I just called it categories. And what I would do is gather a whole bunch of different items from all over the house or all over the school when I was teaching, and lay them out on the table or on the floor, all these different things, seemingly unrelated. And then we would make categories, and we would put things together and decide how would they go together in different categories. Or these are all the things that are made out of metal, or these are all the things that are red, or these are all the things that came from the kitchen, or these are all the things, and you make categories. And then you take them after everybody has fun doing that, and you all decide on the categories, and you take them and you mix them up again, and you say, okay, do it again, but you have to think of different categories. So then we'd have to redo and think of other ways to put things together. Oh, look, these things are all long and skinny, so those go together. And these things are all round, or these are heavy, or, and we'd do it again and again and again until the kids would just be laughing, and we'd be making up silly categories, and until you get to the point where you say, you can see the connections and you can see the similarities in everything that's there. I had this experience at Home Depot. It's been 3 weeks since I've worked at Home Depot. How about that? But at Home Depot, they have this humongous store. There are, I think, like 10 different departments out there on the floor. I worked in the garden department, seasonal and garden department, which is quite huge. And there are lots of subcategories within all of them. But I think there's about 10. And when I first got there, again, I had this fear. It's like, I don't know anything. And I'm just going to stick to my department because that's all I can handle right now. And I have to learn all of these things, all of these different products that are here. And I have to learn my way around and learn. And it's seasonal, so things are constantly changing and moving. And so that seemed like more than enough. And I just tried to stay out of hardware and all those other places because that was just too scary. And somebody might ask me a question I didn't know. But gradually, as I learned my way around the store and I got more comfortable and more relaxed, I learned it was like the game of categories. It was like I could find connections all around. And I discovered products that I didn't know existed. And I think I was there 3 or 4 years before I realized we have these little kneeling pads in garden that you put down to protect your knees, when you're out there weeding. Well, lo and behold, I found that we had another kind of kneeling pad, and where do you think they were? They were with concrete and lumber and building materials on the other side of the store. And then I started having fun discovering and finding different products. They call it cross-merchandising, putting products that are similar or the same in different places because people might need a kneeling pad for weeding, but they also might need it if they're doing concrete work. And I realized that people would grumble about the way the store was laid out, or why is this product in this, in this department. And I realized it was just like a game. I imagine the corporate office, and all the people gathered around and playing a game of categories. And deciding where would the kneeling pads go and where would the sponges go, and somebody decided that umbrellas were actually a garden department product number, but they lived in the hardware area, and that there were lumber that we use for building big garden beds and everything that was in the garden, which made sense, but it's a lumber department, they call it a SKU number. So the garden department could sell 1 million of those, but it never shows up on our our sold report because it's a lumber SKU. And so so I just imagine them all sitting around the corporate office, playing categories with all the products in Home Depot. And it's just because there's a million different ways you can put things together. There's a million different ways you can divide them up and decide where they're going to go. And it's important to realize that just because, somebody else thinks differently than we do, or we don't see that connection, somebody else can see that connection. And the unity behind it all is what we need to focus on. The unity behind everything that we do. I remember having a very profound experience as a mother. My son got hurt and needed surgery. And I used to work as a nurse at one point. That was before my Home Depot incarnation. And going to the doctor and sort of the nurse kicked in that role. And I started getting real nervous about, am I sort of supposed to play the nurse or play the mom? And how am I supposed to do this? And then it was like, Yogananda just sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, it's all the same. You don't need to do anything different. I thought, what is being asked of me? Nothing is being asked of me more than what is God expecting me every day. Open your heart, be loving and kind, try to listen for intuition, try to be a channel for that light to not only to my son, but to all the people caring for him, and to every situation. There is nothing different being asked of you here. It's always the same. And I just could feel myself relaxing and opening and just being calm and being sure that no matter what, that would just take me to the right course. That would keep me going in the direction that I wanted to go. And so it's the unity that we want to focus on. In the Rays of the Same Light, there's 2 books. The reading that we do is called Rays of the One Light, and then there's an expanded version that's a little bit longer with the same Bible reading and Gita reading. And in that one, actually, Swami titles that reading, How to Go from, did he say, how to open the conscious mind to the superconscious. That instead of this one, it was intellect is complex, intuition is simple. And that's actually what we're doing, is we're opening the conscious mind, which is using the senses and the intellect to divide and analyze and figure out things. And we're opening to the superconscious, where that unity exists. Because obviously on this level of the conscious mind, it's really hard to see unity. Everybody looks different. You're all beautiful, but you're all different, and every situation seems different. And so we have to open ourselves to that superconscious level, where there's no barriers, there's no boundaries, there's no categories, there's no big stacks of books that say this belongs here in this book and this belongs in this. It's all on a level of unity, which is why a lot of people describe that inner experience of when they deeply meditate or they have a spiritual experience, they describe it as wholeness. Because there's no division, there's no pieces and parts. It's all whole. And our heart, just longs for that, and our soul knows it exists. Otherwise, we wouldn't be looking for it. We know it's there. We know it's real. And so we come here and we do what we do to try to, make that the reality, remind ourselves of that reality of wholeness, and trying to live on that superconscious level, which is all of the things that we do here, the chanting, the prayers, the affirmations, the songs that we sing. Everything is about reminding ourselves of that unity behind the appearance of separation. And it's like playing categories and finally picking everything up and looking at it and saying, it's all from the same source. It's all made from love. It's all part of that infinite spirit, that infinite light, that doesn't divide, that doesn't compare. It's all the same for everybody, and it's all equally accessible for everybody as well. So we look at those pieces. I imagine, the little symbol that you see on recycle symbols that says a little 6 or a little 4 or a little 5. I imagine picking one up and looking over and just seeing a little heart, Everything comes from that same source. Everything is unified and in that light if we look closely enough at it. So all we need to do is look for that unity. Overcome the carping spirit. Learn to swim in the ocean of delusion. This is from Whispers from Eternity, number 110. O Father, my little raft of meditation is floating toward thy shore. Though buffeted by furious storms of distraction and heaving waves on the sea of my mind rise and fall tumultuously, yet I am heading steadfastly toward thy shore. O Master Mariner, come, take charge of my boat. Om. Peace. Amen. We have another fun song for you.
Again, another song by Swami Ananda, this one entitled Little Kathy.
Little Kathy went dancing, went dancing, went dancing. Little Kathy went dancing one day. She danced out in the garden, the garden. She danced out in the garden, her heart was so gay. La la lee, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. La la lee, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. There she saw a small robin, small robin, small robin. There she saw a small robin, it sat in a tree. Little friend, come and join me, come join me, come join me. Little friend, come and join me, come dancing with me. La la lee, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. La la lee, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. I'm afraid I'd look silly, look silly, look silly. I'm afraid I'd look silly, the robin said then. For I'm timid and tiny, and tiny, and tiny. For I'm timid and tiny, birds can't dance like men. La la lay, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. La la lay, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. Magic wings you can fly with, can fly with, can fly with. Magic wings you can fly with, I strut like a man. Everyone can do something, do something, do something. Everyone can do something, it's part of God's plan. La la lay, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. La la lay, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart was so gay. Let's all call our neighbors, our neighbors, our neighbors. Let's all call our neighbors, the large and the small. All the world should be dancing, be dancing, be dancing. All the world should be dancing, for God made us all. La la lay, oh la la lay. Little Kathy went dancing, her heart
Good morning. Thank you, Lorna. That was wonderful. Next Sunday at this time, we're going to have as our guest ministers Narayan and Dharma Devi from Los Angeles. And they will be here actually as part of a Kriya that we're doing this next weekend. But next Friday night, whether or not you're a Kriyaban, you are welcome to come for a free evening talk on the path of Kriya Yoga. And then on Saturday morning from 9 to 1, they'll be leading a Kriya retreat. That will be for Kriya Bonds only, and then the Kriya initiation on Saturday night. But Sunday, they'll of course be staying over to do the Sunday service for us. Between now and then, there's a lot happening. We have 3 yoga classes on Wednesday, Thursday, and on Saturday. And we also, on Wednesday evening, have a book study led by Santosh on Asha's new book on Swami Kriyananda called Light Bearer. And of course, there's no charge for that. So we hope to see you along the way, and thanks for being here this morning.